Welcome to the second part of the Brothers Karamazov. If you have not watched the first part, we recommend you to check it out before watching this part. Let's get to it.
Book 7, Rebellion, is the seventh part of the Brothers Karamazov by Fyodor Dostoyevsky. In this part, the novel explores the themes of rebellion and freedom, focusing on the character of Ivan Karamazov. Ivan, who is the second son of Fyodor Karamazov and the most intellectually gifted of the three brothers, has been struggling with deep moral and philosophical doubts throughout the novel. He is deeply troubled by the idea of God and the existence of evil in the world. He is also unhappy with the society around him and the way in which it oppresses individuals. Ivan's rebellion begins with the story he tells of the Grand Inquisitor, in which he describes a vision of a future in which the Church has become corrupt and oppressive, and Jesus returns to earth and is arrested by the Inquisition. Ivan argues that Jesus would be unable to save humanity from its own folly and that the only way to bring about true freedom and justice is through rebellion and rejection of traditional authority. Ivan also expresses his disgust with his father Fyodor and the society he represents, and the lack of freedom and dignity for individuals in it. He expresses his desire for a new society where individual freedom and autonomy would be valued and protected. However, Ivan's rebellion is not a simple matter of rebellion against one's oppressors or the society. Ivan struggles with his own contradictions, and he is not sure what he wants and what is right. He is tormented by the idea that maybe there is no God, and therefore there can be no morality, no right and wrong. He is also deeply troubled by the idea that if there is no God, then all human actions are ultimately meaningless. In summary, Book 7, Rebellion, presents Ivan's rebellion as a complex and deeply personal struggle that reflects the existential and moral questions at the heart of the novel. It explores the themes of freedom, morality, and the nature of God and humanity, and how Ivan struggles with these issues and tries to find meaning in life. Book 8, The Grand Inquisitor, is the eighth part of the Brothers Karamazov by Fyodor Dostoyevsky. In this part, Ivan, the second son of Fyodor Karamazov, tells a story to his brother Alexei about a vision he had of a Grand Inquisitor who arrested Jesus after his return to Earth. Ivan uses this story as a way to explore some of the deeper moral and philosophical questions that have been troubling him throughout the novel, particularly the nature of God, freedom, and the role of religion in society. The story takes place in a Spanish town during the Spanish Inquisition. Jesus, who has returned to Earth, is arrested by the Grand Inquisitor, who is the leader of the Inquisition. The Grand Inquisitor tells Jesus that he is no longer needed, and that the Church, through the use of force and deception, has been able to maintain order and control over the people more effectively than Jesus ever could. He argues that the people are not capable of true freedom, and that they need the Church to guide them and protect them from themselves. Ivan uses this story to argue that religion and the Church have become oppressive and corrupt, and that people are no longer free to think and believe as they choose. He argues that people need to rebel against traditional authority and embrace true freedom and autonomy. However, Ivan's story also highlights the moral dilemma and the inner struggle he has. Ivan questions whether true freedom and autonomy are even possible, and whether rebellion and rejection of traditional authority is ultimately a good thing. He also questions whether God truly exists, and if so, whether God is good and just. In summary, Book 8, The Grand Inquisitor, presents Ivan's story as a meditation on the nature of God, freedom, and the role of religion in society. It explores the theme of the cost of true freedom, how society oppresses individuals, and how much control individuals are willing to give up for the comfort and security. Ivan's story raises important questions about the limits of human freedom and autonomy, the possibility of true faith and morality without God, and the morality of rebellion against authority. Book 9, Lacerations, is the ninth part of the Brothers Karamazov by Fyodor Dostoyevsky. In this part, the novel shifts its focus to the character of Dmitry Karamazov, the eldest son of Fyodor Karamazov, who is deeply in love with a woman named Katerina Ivanovna and is consumed with jealousy over her relationship with his father. Dmitry's feelings of jealousy and resentment lead him to commit a terrible crime, and he is arrested and put on trial for murder. Dmitry's trial serves as a focal point for the novel's exploration of the theme of guilt and the nature of morality. Dmitry is torn between his love for Katerina Ivanovna and his anger towards his father, as well as his own sense of guilt and responsibility for the crime he committed. Through Dmitry's trial, the novel examines the question of whether an individual is truly responsible for their actions and whether human beings are capable of true moral choice. As the trial progresses, Dmitri's brothers Ivan and Alexei are also drawn into the drama, with Ivan struggling to come to terms with his own responsibility for the crime and Alexei fighting to clear Dmitri's name and prove his innocence. The trial raises questions of morality and guilt, and the complex psychological motivations behind criminal actions. As the trial reaches its conclusion, the novel also touches on themes of redemption and forgiveness, as well as the possibility of atonement and the possibility of redemption for those who have committed terrible crimes. In summary, Book 9, Lacerations deals with the aftermath of the crime committed by Dmitri and explores the moral implications of his actions and the psychological motivations that led him to commit it. The book serves as a commentary on the human condition and the question of whether individuals are truly responsible for their actions and whether people are capable of true moral choice. The part also brings in the emotions of the other characters, especially Ivan and Alexei, and their reactions to the crime and the trial. Book 10, The Boy at Christ's Christmas Tree is the 10th part of the Brothers Karamazov by Fyodor Dostoyevsky. This part is a standalone chapter that describes a moment of grace experienced by Alexei, the youngest of the Karamazov brothers, when he is visited by a group of poor children at Christmas time. The chapter is a lyrical and moving depiction of Alexei's spiritual transformation as he reflects on the plight of the poor children and the nature of love and compassion. The chapter begins with Alexei, who is a deeply religious man, visiting a group of poor children who are celebrating Christmas in a makeshift chapel. As he watches the children, he is overwhelmed by their poverty and suffering, and by the love and joy that they radiate despite their difficult circumstances. As he reflects on the children and the meaning of Christmas, Alexei experiences a moment of grace and spiritual insight, in which he comes to understand the true nature of love and compassion. He realizes the importance of the love and care for the poor, the humble and the outcast. He also understands how he himself been too focused on his own spiritual pursuits and how he has failed to truly love and care for others. The chapter concludes with Alexei making a commitment to dedicate himself to helping the poor and suffering and to living a life of true compassion and charity. This chapter serves as a powerful reminder of the importance of love and compassion in the face of suffering and hardship, and of the transformative power of spiritual insight. The part also reflects on the idea of selflessness and the importance of caring for others as well as oneself. It serves as a counterpoint to Ivan's rejection of God and his emphasis on individual freedom and autonomy. In summary, Book 10, The Boy at Christ's Christmas Tree is a chapter which describes the spiritual epiphany of Alexei Karamazov as he reflects on the plight of poor children. In this part, the author reflects on the human nature and how we can find true love and compassion, but also it reflects on the meaning of religion and spirituality in human life. Book 11, The Veil Torn in Two is the 11th part of the Brothers Karamazov by Fyodor Dostoyevsky. In this part, the novel shifts its focus back to Ivan and delves deeper into the existential and philosophical questions that have been troubling him throughout the book. Ivan's struggles and doubts reach a climax in this section, and he finds himself faced with a profound moral and existential crisis. The part begins with Ivan receiving a letter from his brother Dmitri in which Dmitri claims responsibility for their father's murder, which had been Ivan's father Fyodor, who was also Dmitri's rival for the woman he loved, Katerina Ivanovna, and Ivan had been suspected of committing the crime. Ivan struggles to come to terms with Dmitri's confession and with the fact that his brother is capable of committing such a heinous act. As the part progresses, Ivan's mental state continues to deteriorate as he is plagued by guilt, confusion, and despair. He is haunted by the memories of his past, and by the moral and existential questions that have been troubling him throughout the novel. He is consumed by doubt and guilt, and he comes to the conclusion that there is no meaning or purpose in life, and that human beings are ultimately doomed to suffer and to die. As the part comes to a close, Ivan's mental and emotional state reaches a breaking point, and he falls ill and becomes delirious. In his delirium, he has a vision of the devil, who represents the atheism, the absence of God and the absence of morality, and Ivan's mind is finally at peace. He accepts the idea of the devil, the absence of God and the meaninglessness of life, and in a way accepts his own death. In summary, Book 11, The Veil Torn in Two serves as a culmination of Ivan's struggles and doubts throughout the novel. It deals with the themes of guilt, morality, the nature of God, and the meaning of life. It is an exploration of the psychological and emotional turmoil that Ivan experiences in the face of the moral and existential crisis that grips him, and how he reaches an understanding that allows him to come to terms with his own mortality and the absence of meaning. Book 12, The Great Renunciation, is the 12th and final part of the Brothers Karamazov by Fyodor Dostoyevsky. In this part, the novel's central mystery is finally solved and several of the main characters make significant choices and changes. The story revolves around the murder of Fyodor Karamazov, which occurred earlier in the novel, and the trial of Dmitry Karamazov, the eldest son, who is accused of the murder. Throughout the trial, several characters, including Ivan, Alexei, and the Karamazov family's servants, give testimony, and it becomes clear that Dmitry is guilty of the crime. As the trial progresses, Dmitry makes a series of revelations, confesses to the crime, and explains his motivations for committing the murder. He explains that he killed his father out of jealousy and anger, but also out of a desire to protect his younger brother, Ivan, who he believes was being driven to madness by his father's cruelty and manipulation. As Dmitry awaits his punishment, he undergoes a profound spiritual transformation and makes a decision to renounce his desire for wealth, power, and revenge. He also renounces his love for Katerina Ivanovna, knowing that it was not a pure love and it was motivated by his jealousy of Ivan. Ivan, who has been struggling with his own conscience and the implications of his rejection of God, also makes a significant decision. Ivan decides to leave the town and the people he loves to seek the truth and redemption. He renounces his own desire for wealth, power, and revenge, and chooses to go on a spiritual journey in the hope that it will lead him to the answers he seeks. In the end, Alexei, the youngest brother and the novel's protagonist, becomes a monk and is the only one left behind, and the novel implies that he will continue to work on his own spiritual journey. In summary, Book 12, The Great Renunciation, brings the novel to its dramatic and emotional conclusion. The story deals with the themes of guilt, redemption, and the nature of God. It explores the choices that the characters make in response to their guilt and the consequences of their actions. The novel ends with the characters renouncing their desires for wealth, power, and revenge, and making the decision to seek spiritual fulfillment and redemption. The Great Renunciation is a representation of the theme of spirituality and the search for meaning and redemption that runs throughout the novel. So, The Brothers Karamazov is one of the greatest works of literature written by the masterful Fyodor Dostoyevsky. This novel takes us on a journey through the minds and souls of its characters as they grapple with some of the most profound and timeless questions about morality, God, freedom, and the meaning of life. Throughout the novel, Dostoyevsky masterfully uses the characters to explore different ideologies and perspectives, making the readers question their own beliefs and understanding of the world. The characters in the novel are complex and multidimensional, each with their own flaws and virtues, which makes the novel all the more relatable. One of the most prominent themes in the novel is the struggle between faith and reason, which is exemplified by the characters of Ivan and Alexei. Ivan, the rationalist, rejects the idea of God, while Alexei, the mystic, embraces it. But both characters struggle with their beliefs and ultimately are unable to find a resolution to their struggle. Another theme that runs throughout the novel is the idea of rebellion and freedom. Ivan, who is deeply troubled by the state of society and the way it oppresses and manipulates individuals, is also struggling with the fact that he doesn't know what true freedom is, and how to achieve it. His story of the Grand Inquisitor serves as a commentary on the superficiality of the world and the desire for fame and recognition that consumes people. Another theme that Dostoyevsky explores is the idea of the conscience, guilt, and redemption. The characters in the novel are haunted by their conscience and guilt for the actions they have taken, and they struggle to find redemption for their actions. The Great Renunciation, which is the final act of the novel, represents the characters' attempt to find redemption and spiritual fulfillment through renouncing their desires for wealth, power, and revenge. In conclusion, The Brothers Karamazov is a novel that is not just about a murder, but about the human condition, the search for meaning and understanding in life. Dostoyevsky uses the characters and the plot to explore some of the most profound and timeless questions about morality, God, freedom, and the meaning of life. This novel is a masterpiece and it is a must-read for anyone interested in literature, philosophy, and the human experience. The author has left us with much to ponder upon, and it is a novel that will remain relevant and thought-provoking for years to come.